When I first became a mum, I remember feeling safe and secure in the knowledge that there were many people around me whom I could turn to for help. The best thing was that my mum and my sister, who already had 2 children, were just down the road. What if that isn't the case? What if you have no one around you? You're alone and your only connection is via a landline phone. How would you cope? Intrigued to know what it's like? Then sit back, relax and listen to find out. On this episode, I am joined by the wonderful Lucy Barrett, whose experience of mothering started the moment her baby was placed in her hands in Hong Kong. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. During this podcast series, I will be interviewing 6 awesome women who will be sharing with us their mum story. My guest today is Lucy. Thank you for joining us today, Lucy.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Maria. It's very nice to be here. Thank you.
So Lucy, who is Lucy?
Oh, this is such a hard question, Maria, isn't it? Like, to begin with, because you said you were going to ask me this question, and I thought, how do you answer that question? Because I think there's lots of roles. I'm a woman, I'm a wife, a mum, a friend, sister, daughter, I'm a style coach. There's all those things, but they seem things that I do. And, so who am I? So I just think I'm kind of this ever-evolving being from childhood to now that has had experiences and met different people and been to different places, and that starts to kind of evolve into who I am now, and I'm sure that will carry on evolving throughout my life. So I think it's quite a hard question, but I think I've had a lot of transition and change in my life, and I think that has really become, and a lot of the people I work with are also in some kind of change or transition or have had, so that seems quite a theme to who I am, I think.
I love that. It's funny, when I ask this question, I get one of 2 responses. I either get a very succinct answer, which is a combination of roles and the service that the mum is delivering, or I get your answer, which is, wow, it's a very difficult question. And actually, it depends who I am at the point of my life, because we obviously lead different chapters in our lives, and those chapters are what make us the people we turn out to be.
Yeah, definitely. And we're ever evolving, aren't we? It's never static. You may not notice some changes because they're slower, and other changes we notice straight away. Like, there's a date when you have a baby, right? there's a date on certain things, but other things are a bit more fluid or a bit more, happening, but we're not perhaps as conscious of them as other things.
Definitely. So you are a mum.
I am.
Did you always know that you wanted to be a mum?
I didn't. I don't think it's something I really thought about. And when, I don't remember thinking about this question of whether I would be a mum or not. And then I think we got married, and I guess we should have talked about that before we got married, shouldn't we, really? But our situation was we got married in our mid-20s, and then immediately we moved to another country. So we moved to Hong Kong for a year's adventure. And I guess we were busy settling in, finding our feet in a new place, I had to find work and make friends. And, it was a different world then, because this was 1994 and we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, we didn't have phone calls were so expensive. So I think we were busy finding our feet and enjoying that adventure. And then we went beyond the year, as you know. And then I think when we were in our late 20s, I knew Andy wanted kids, but it wasn't something we really talked about a lot. And then we started talking about it a little bit more. And then I thought, well, there's only kind of one way to know, isn't there? So I came off the pill and kind of, let's see what happens. So no, it wasn't something I really thought about. So I wasn't a no, or I wasn't a yes. I was just a bit getting on with other things, really.
Oh, it sounds like also it goes back to what you said when you were describing who you are. It's just life evolving, and it was just like, oh, well, let's see what happens, as opposed to we do this, then we do this, then we do this, then we do this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it wasn't something. So no, I wouldn't say. I would say, oh no, I don't want them. I think I didn't really know what it would look like or feel like either. You know, it wasn't. And I didn't have people around me who were having children. Like I had friends in the UK who were starting to have children, but where I was, most people were not. I only had one friend who had children. That was it. I wasn't in that kind of space with my friends either. So I wasn't visiting people who had children, and I'd never held a newborn baby until I was given my own.
Wow.
If that's not scary.
Yeah. Here you are, and it's yours.
Yeah, and here you are, lifelong commitment.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
crikey.
yeah.
So you have had an interesting mum journey because, like you said a minute ago, you're in a different country. The communication we know today wasn't what you had.
No.
Tell us your mum story.
Well, it was a bit of a bumpy start because I did have a couple of miscarriages very early on. And so that was a bit of a bumpy start. And as you know, Maria, they are not just physical experiences when that happens to you. So that was a bit stressful. And then we kind of put it on the back burner because it was just, I didn't want that monthly stress of, you know, am I, aren't I? So mentally, we just kind of put it on the back burner. And then I started training as a colour and style consultant. I'm now a style coach, but at that time I started my training. And about a month in, I found that I was pregnant. And I was like, oh no, I've just found this work that I think I can really love and make something of. And now I'm pregnant. And in my mind, it was like, oh, I'm going to have to, you know, give it up. So I spoke to the lovely Jane Whitehead, who was training me, and I said, oh, Jane, I'm pregnant. She went, oh, well, women have babies. And we just carried on. So it was like, oh yeah. So I did my training pregnant. So my colouring didn't change. My body obviously was changing a lot throughout that time. And then I had my baby and we just carried on working together. And then when my eldest was about a year old, she left Hong Kong and I carried on my own. So my experience of being mum and my experience of working in the styling world are, you know, you can't separate them because they happened at the same time and they became inseparable and completely intertwined. So that was kind of my experience of becoming a mum and a stylist at the same time. So yeah, it was kind of a bit, I don't know, you know, so when she said that, I think it gave me a lot of freedom to, oh yeah, okay, you know, I don't have to stop doing things. I don't have to, it's not going to be something that is a restraining thing, if you like, as much as perhaps I had it in my mind that it might be. Although, as you know, I didn't really have a clue what it was going to be like. But you know, it's suddenly she just opened up this world of it's just part of a woman's life if they choose to have a child. And some choose not to, and some don't have children. It's not like everybody does. But if you do choose it, then it's part of your life. It doesn't have to be a break on it, if you like.
Do you think then that because you were still very much working and you had this other thing that was yours, other than obviously your lovely baby,
Yeah.
do you think that helped you to retain your identity? Because obviously when you become a mum, it is this new massive thing of which is filled with uncertainty, and it's easy to put yourself to one side and just focus all of your energies on your baby.
I think absolutely 100%. Because it's self-absorbing, isn't it? It's completely absorbing this young, you know, this little thing that you take home from, I had my children in hospital, that you take home and you're 100%, no, they're 100% dependent on you. But just having this outlet, and I went back to, I was lucky because I was working with Jane and we were, you know, independent, we worked for ourselves. I was lucky because I could take my time and go back slowly. It wasn't like, oh, I've got this many months of maternity leave and then I need to go back to work. I wasn't in that situation. And I think when he was about a month old, I started going back if she worked weekends because Andy was around at the weekend. And then gradually I, you know, increased it, but 100%. And I think because of the work we were doing, it's styling, it's visual, it's around appearance, you know, so it kind of, I had to step up and get dressed, put a little bit of makeup on. And yeah, I absolutely, and being with her, because she'd had children herself. She was quite a lot older than me. Just that experience and that attitude she had, I just think, yeah, I think absolutely 100%. And I think that's one of the things I would say to people: have something for yourself when you become a mum. It doesn't have to be work. It can be a hobby, a sport, an interest, whatever it is. Just have something that's for you, because I think that is something that definitely had me stay on that kind of line of taking care of myself as well, I think.
Yeah, because I think that's the other thing, that you naturally, it's not that you don't do it. It's like you said, because being a mum is just so absorbing. I think it just stops being on your radar. You just want to look after the baby because the baby can't look after themselves. So in that vein, you're over in Hong Kong, which
Yeah.
is many, many miles away from your support network.
It is.
How do you, or how did you cope being so far away from everybody?
Well, you just got to get on with it, haven't you? There's no choice. And I didn't know anyone who had kids. The one, as I said, the one person I knew, she'd left a few months before, so it took a while to start to know other people that, and the setup was different. There wasn't like, you got the health visitor coming, like I think I mean, I don't know, I've not had a baby in the UK, but my imagine is you have a health visitor, there are baby groups, and even back then there would have been baby groups and things to go to, and they were not really there, or you had to work quite hard to find them. So it was really Andy and I with a baby, and someone gave me a book, What to Expect in the First Year. Is that a book? Something like that, What to Expect in the First Year. So I'd sit and read that book while I was feeding. And then that was kind of it. That's what we had, really. So we just kind of got on with it and did our own thing. And we weren't influenced by stuff because we didn't have access to it. So, it was just we just had to do it and then get on with it.
So in that
That was
vein,
how it was.
so you could see, did you ever feel isolated then because you were by yourselves and the people that surrounded you weren't having children? Or did you find it liberating because actually there was nobody who could say to you, we wouldn't do it like that. I thought you could do it like this.
Isolated. I don't remember. I'm sure there were times when I felt, I remember the first time that Andy went to work, so, I because I had cesarean, so I was in hospital for probably a little bit longer than if you have a natural birth, and they tend to keep you in Hong Kong in hospital longer anyway. And Andy had took some time off when I came out, and then I think he went to work on the Monday, and I remember just being in the flat with my baby thinking, oh, I don't know what to do, just this, because they don't come with an instruction book, do they? Or an on-off button or a volume control. They don't come with they don't come with that. And I remember him leaving for work, and I felt very like, oh, and I didn't have anyone to. I had friends, but they didn't have children, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I don't remember feeling isolated, but I remember feeling a little bit, oh crikey, what do I do now? And then just trying to do whatever you feel. And I did have a midwife come and visit me a few times and things like that, but and I guess I think it was freedom, but because we didn't have there was no one to compare to, so there was less of that. And I'd speak to my friends in England who had children, but they weren't near me, so it was only phone calls back then. We didn't have this Zoom and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think it was. I don't remember feeling lonely, but I do remember feeling a little bit like, oh, what do I do with this little thing all the time? But but I didn't remember going into any kind of slump of, and I made myself go out every day, even if it was just for a walk, because I had cesarean, and when I told my friend, one of my friends in England, that was likely I was going to have a cesarean, she said, oh, Lucy, she said, you can't lift the baby, you can't do anything for a month. And I thought, oh God, we live on the 3rd floor, we don't have a lift. How am I going to get home? It's like real, how am I going to get home? I won't be able to get home. And it was fine, I didn't have any of that. So I made myself go out for a walk every day just to get out of the house. And But isn't it incredible when you have a baby that you can put a load of washing on at 7 in the morning and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon it's not pegged out yet? That was the kind of thing that surprised me. Like, how can this little thing take up 100% of my time and my energy, and I can't do simple things like peg out my washing or, stuff like that. But
You know what? The thing that surprised me, that we're all advised, I think, when the baby sleeps, you must sleep. The thing is, I like to get stuff done. So there would be the odd occasion when my daughter was asleep or my son was asleep that I would take a nap. I also thought, yeah, but there's washing that needs to be done. And there's lots of dishes that need to be put in the dishwasher. So I'd use that time to do some house chores. And now looking back at it, I'm thinking, I should have just gone to sleep.
yeah, well, I exactly the same. I'm exactly the same. And it's incredible, isn't it? And when you have one, you can do that. But if you have more than one, then that's gone. That's gone. You only really, well, for me, you only really get to do it when you've got one, because the other ones, even if you've still got one young enough to nap when you have the second one, it's unlikely they're going to nap at the same time, isn't it?
This is true.
I know when you've got a toddler, and I had two boys. I had two boys and a girl, so I had the two boys living in a flat. You have to go out. You have, I spent a lot of time in the park, at the beach. They needed to space to run about because we didn't have a garden. We just had this tiny little balcony. So I had to, and I found when I took them out, I was 100% focused on them and what we were doing. When I was at home, there was also, I've just got to. So, get the baby to sleep. And then the older one says, Mummy, will you play Lego or whatever? I will, but I've just got to. And by the time I got to it, the little one was waking up again. But I found when I went out, then I just focused on them, because I was often on my own when I was out with them, especially in the beginning when I didn't have so many friends who had kids. And I just focused on them when I went out. And so I enjoyed taking them out and going out, because that meant I felt like I had quality time.
That's so
There
true.
seemed to be things to do.
That's so true. And I bet you felt better for going out because actually you were outside in nature rather than being in the house.
Yeah.
And like you said, having the distractions of other things that you could do as well as trying to look after your children.
Yeah, well, the phone will ring, won't it? Or, because I was working as well, trying to, I just got to contact this person, or I could just get this done, just get that done, while Tom's happily playing there. But then I missed out on doing things with him at home. Not all the time, but, a lot of the time. So I found the going out bit was, okay, we're going out, just focus. And even if we were with other people, they got to play with other people. I got to speak to, my friend. And we didn't have, well, we did have mobile phones, but not in the way that we have them now. I remember I had a mobile phone and I think I only had Andy's number in it for a long time. Because I didn't think, who else did I need to call when I was out?
Yeah.
I didn't need to call anybody else. Different times, Maria. Different times.
Do you know what? When I talk to my children about, so at the front door, it used to be connected. It's not anymore, but it's a real phone.
Oh,
It's like, you have to pick it up. It's got like a cord. It looks like a dial, but you actually press the buttons. And they just find that hilarious.
yeah. I know.
They're like, what? When were you born? Like 200 years ago? And I'm like, no.
Well, Tom had a little computer disc. He had a Thomas the Tank Engine disc to play with on the computer. And we used to have to unplug the phone to put the internet cord in. So when he was, I've got to show my age now, aren't I?
No, I remember that.
In his 20s. He's not, he's 26. It's not like he's 40 or anything like that. And we'd have to unplug the phone, plug the internet in, dial up, and then he would play on his little game. And then when he'd finished, we would plug the phone back in.
Oh yeah, no, I remember many a time like shouting down to or telling everybody in the house when I was younger, I'm about to use the internet, please don't use the landline.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
And not that long. I mean, he's only 26. He's not,
Oh dear. It's
crazy
just,
time.
yes, the world has
And I
changed.
wonder if, because where we were was different to here as well, I suppose, in a lot of senses as well. But it was a fantastic place to have young children. Honestly, it was. And eventually I did have some help at home, because there wasn't the setup of childminders and nurseries like you have here. So I did have some help, and but we had beaches and playgrounds and nature reserves, and like in a really short space, like geographical space. So it was a fantastic place to have young children, and we had nice weather most of the time. It's very hot in the summer, but we didn't really have much of a winter, so you could go to the beach in January, just with a kind of sweatshirt on. So it really was an amazing place to have young children. And I haven't had young children anywhere else, so I don't know. But although we came to England every summer to see family and, stuff like that. So we used to fly that 13-hour flight.
With children.
Yeah, the first time I did it on my own, my daughter was about 10 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Because you remember we had SARS she was born in 2003, and we had SARS over there just before she was born. And then I had her, then it started raining, and I think I just phoned Andy and said, please book me flights. I wasn't going to go to England that year because I thought 3 little ones, that was just too hard. And I said, can you book me flights? I just need to have a break from here for a bit. So we, did all that flight, but they were just, that was what they were used to.
I can still hear all the mums listening to this going, oh my goodness, hats off to Lucy for getting on a 13-hour flight with 3 children.
Well, when my brother took me to the airport, he said, Lucy, are you sure? Because Andy had come with me, and then I was flying back on my own. And he said, Lucy, are you sure? Are you sure this is a good idea? I said, well, I've got to get home, haven't I? And they were fine, but so I think they were like 5.5, 3 and 10 weeks or something when I flew the first time on my own with them. With all 3 of them, that is. But,
Wow.
Oh, but this is that thing, isn't it? You do what you need to do.
I think this is the theme that runs through motherhood, regardless of your experience, where you live, your upbringing, whatever the bits around it. The theme that runs through it is we do what we have to do with what we know and what we've got, because nobody else will.
No, and it might be everyone's circumstances are different, but that is the theme, isn't it? And I think having children gives you self-confidence, because there is no one else to do it, because they can't do it. They're like 6 weeks old or 2 years old or whatever, and you have to do it because there's no one else to take control.
No, it's probably one of the few times that, if you think about it in your life, when you're asked to do something, whether it's going for a job interview, whether you've got to stand up and talk in front of a bunch of people or whatever, when you've got to do something new that doesn't involve the children, you probably do think, oh, hang on a second, can I do this? Do I want to do this? And there is that hesitation, exactly like you've just said. When you've got to do something for the first time which involves your children, you can't go, well, I'm not doing it, because most of the time you've got no choice. You have to do it, and confidence is built by taking action and doing it.
Yeah, and there's not someone else say, would you do it instead? Would you do that instead? Because I don't want to do it, or I can't do it, or I can't wait. No, and I think it does, doesn't it? Gives us self-confidence because we have to do it. And then you grow, and then the next time you think, oh, that's not, how many of us have had to find somewhere to take a toddler to the toilet, or all these kinds of things that you'd never walk into somewhere and say, could I use your toilet? But when you've got a 2-year-old who's got to go now, like, excuse me, I know this is a really weird thing, but can we use your toilet? You could be in a shop or anything like that. And most people say, yeah, because I don't want them to, because you don't have the time, do you? You don't often, when they're little, you don't have the time to think, oh, well, in half an hour we'll be somewhere. It's like, it's now. It's now. I think the most useful thing I had was my portable potty.
Which I suppose back then, I would say that's rare. Like when I had my children, so my children are 10 and 8.
Yeah.
I had like a small portable toilet, but I think most of us did. But I'm assuming when you were having children, which was, they were like 15, they're 15 years older than, or maybe a bit older than
Yeah,
me.
and
That'd be unusual.
we had a small mother care, and that was pretty much it, to buy things. And then another shop came along later on, called Bumps to Babes, and that was fantastic, and that sold nearly everything. But we had a small mother care which everybody went to, and that was kind of it, really.
No Amazon, no
No
next day
Amazon,
delivery.
no Google, none of that. I mean, Tom, he was born before we had Google. There was no Google in 1997, was there?
No, can you imagine? It is every time you say something that like puts a time stamp on it. I
Makes me
just
look
think
old.
of this. Well, no, I think of the conversations that I have with my children, and because they've grown up in it and they know no different, they literally look at you as if to say, "I don't know what you're talking about." I mean, how could there be no such thing as the internet, YouTube, um, Google, all of these things that we take for granted now that
Yeah,
actually make our lives easier, they have no idea. So it'd be really interesting to be able to like fast forward time to when they're adults
yeah,
to see how their environment then differs from now. And they'll probably be looking back going, oh my word, how did we cope without and whatever is in the future? So yeah.
yeah. And they're like being away from family, in a way. But I think it was because we had our children out there. It wasn't like we had them here and then we did move them later, but at that time they were all born in the same place. It's not like we had the family support and then we moved away from it. We never had it from the beginning. So we had the support, obviously, like phone calls and things like that, but not on my mum's, down the road, or Andy's mum's down the road. We didn't have that. We didn't have any of that. So, it was how it was.
And look, and everybody's thriving. So
Yeah, I think so. I did all right. got them all to adults. Yay! That's
you
a
have.
celebration in itself, isn't it?
Oh yes, there's the achievement right there. They're all living and they're all is good.
Yeah, yeah, and they all seem all right.
We're coming towards the end of our time together. However, I do have two more questions I'd like to ask you. First of all, what three things would you like our listeners to take away from this conversation?
Oh, I think it will go quickly. This being a mum thing does go quickly. And people say, don't they? Because my children are all in their 20s now. They're 20, 23 and 26. And people will say, enjoy every moment. And I would say, try to enjoy as much of it as you can, but don't put pressure on yourself to enjoy every single moment, because that, I think, is far too much pressure. Because there are going to be times when you don't enjoy certain things, right? Who enjoys having their toddler have a tantrum in the supermarket? Or, there's lots of things that we don't enjoy, and the juggling and the feeling like you're not giving that one everything because you're doing this, and all of that world that I think many of us go into, don't we, that we're trying to do so many things and we feel like we're doing that but we're not doing that. So I'd say don't put too much pressure on yourself to try and enjoy every moment, because that's, we can't enjoy every moment, can we? Well, I don't know, that's what I think. I think another takeaway for me, Ari, would be that children will enhance your life and expand you. They won't restrain you, and they are very mobile. And I think that's a big thing that I have learned, that I didn't say from that very moment, oh, Jane, I'm pregnant. She said, oh, well, women have babies. You don't have to put a restraint on. I mean, there are obviously, you make choices and there are certain things you do and don't do, of course, in that mix, but it doesn't have to be a restraining thing. I think it's an expansion of who you are, and I think that's what I've found.
And I agree.
And I think the third thing is, because I'm a style coach, and I went back to work quite quickly, don't underestimate the power of flattering colours and a little bit of lipstick.
I think, and you're going to agree because it's your job, when I'm wearing something that makes me feel good, I know that I act differently than if I just grab anything from in the wardrobe with no thought and I then start my day.
Yeah. And you will be exhausted, right? You know, I think for me, coming out of the hospital, you're on this euphoric high. And then a few weeks later, you're in this exhausted, you know, oh my God, what did I think of taking this on for? But just wearing a colour that lifts you, that makes you feel good, and then sticking on a little bit of lipstick, I think is, you know, it's a very simple thing, but don't underestimate that, I would say, because I think that can be quite powerful.
And if you don't know what your colours are, then obviously go and see Lucy.
Yes, come and see me and I'll help you with that.
Before we end, our listeners would have been thinking, I need to get into Lucy's world because she seems amazing and I would like more of Lucy. Make it easy for them. How can they connect with you?
So they can go to my website, which is lucybarrettstylecoach.co.uk, or they can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook as Lucy Barrett Style Coach.
There you go, folks. It is that easy.
That easy.
So I'd like to say thank you very much, Lucy, for being on this. I aim to make it a fun conversation.
Yeah, it's been fun. And you know, it has you go back, doesn't it?
It does. A reflection is always nice.
It has you go back and think. And yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
You're most welcome. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Thank you for listening to this episode of What the Mum. If you enjoyed it, I've just got a little favour to ask you. Go ahead and tell all your mum friends so that more mums can share their stories of motherhood. And also, don't forget to subscribe and come and connect with me. Take care, everyone, and see you at the next episode.